I am King Nahusha, your ancestor. Cursed by Rishi Agastya, I have become a snake. It's been a long time since I had anything to eat. Today I got lucky and found you, my prey. I will devour you and satisfy my hunger.
Hi, and welcome to Thinking Sound Design. My name is Avi. I'm an audio drama producer and a sound designer. I thought it might be interesting to go over some of the sounds I'm working on for a project called the Stories of Mahabharata. I'm going to focus on ideas and approach and not so much on how to edit audio or apply plugins. I think there are lots of tutorials for that all over YouTube already. So the example I want to show today is the vocal treatment for a mythological snake called Nahusha. The starting point was a plain voiceover track. The first element was to make the voice have a sort of a guttural, gurgling, rattling kind of sound, something that would have come from deep inside the skull of the snake. I'm going to start it again and see if you can hear that.
I am King Nahusha.
Right? So it's sort of a kind of sound. So it's a distorted voice, and we're going to see how we can get that exact effect. I'm going to turn off all the plugins that I have, and we're going to start with a basic untreated sound. Here's what it sounded like in the beginning.
I am King Nahusha, your ancestor. Cursed by Rishi Agastya, I have become a snake.
So we're going to do a couple of things. First of all, just to beef up the sound and bring it up in level, I'm going to put a compressor on it, and let's hear the effect of that.
I am King Nahusha, your ancestor.
So you can hear that the sound is thicker and it's more immediate in your face. That's already good. Now, what are we going to do about this gurgling sound, right? I kind of described it as a type of distortion. So what kind of distortion are we going to add to this? Here's a stock distortion plugin that came with the editor. Let's just play through that and see what do we get.
I am King Nahusha, your ancestor. Cursed by Rishi Agastya, I have become a snake.
Okay, this is a sort of a saturation effect, a saturation distortion. It's more like what a guitar amp would do to a guitar signal. This is not what I have in mind. So let's get rid of that. The next option is maybe we need something more sophisticated, a more complex distortion. So I'm going to bring in a heavy-duty distortion unit. This is a FabFilter Saturn, and it can do some pretty crazy things. So if I go, let's just go to special effects because we're looking for special things, right? And I'm just going to start stepping through them, and let's see if there's anything that's going to help us here.
I am King Nahusha, your ancestor. Cursed by Rishi Agastya, I have become a snake. It's been time since I had anything to...
So no, this is not working either. I mean, this is an amazing distortion engine, but this is not what I have in mind. What I want is a gurgling sound that sounds like what you can do with the back of your throat. I want the sound, the voice to be very clear, but I want it to be interrupted. I'm going to turn this off. Okay, so I was thinking about, interrupted. This means that it's almost as if somebody put their hand on the volume and turned it down and then turned it up and then turn it down and then turn it up. And then I said, you know what? I have another plugin that actually does volume modulation. It's called Volume Shaper. And if we take a look at it, you'll see this waveform that's drawn here. And this waveform basically says that for a certain period of time, the volume is going to be 0 or low. A certain period of time, it's going to be high, and you have the ability to draw this in any way that you want. Let's play through this and see what effects we can get.
I am King Nahusha,
Not much.
your ancestor. Cursed by Rishi Agastya, I have become a snake.
Okay, at this point you can hear that the volume is going in and going out, but it's still not really producing the gurgling sound. Now let's see what happens if we go to the other extreme. And what I'm changing here is the frequency. It's the speed of this signal, the speed of this waveform that's going up and down, the speed of this modulation of the volume.
I am King Nahusha, your ancestor. Cursed by Rishi.
It's still not doing it. But you know what? I played with it, and as we go down, you will see as I go down in frequency towards maybe around 30 hertz, you'll see that it's going to come into focus as what I ended up with.
I am King Nahusha, your ancestor. Cursed by Rishi Agastya, I have become a snake. It's been a long time since I had anything to eat. Today I got lucky and found you, my prey. I will devour you and satisfy my hunger.
Great. This is going to work. This is pretty close to what I had in mind. Now, remember I said that I want to talk about ideas and not so much about specific plugins, right? Because this type of modulation of the volume can be achieved in many tools and in different ways. You have to keep in mind the idea of what you want to achieve. You have to know your plugins and then figure out how to apply the right tool. So I want to go back to the FabFilter Saturn for a minute because I realized now that I know that volume modulation is the type of effect that is going to give me what I want for the gurgling sound. Let's go back to Saturn and realize that there is a modulation tab on it. And when we click on it, there's a whole panel here where we can modulate things. Now, here's what we can do. We can start with a clean setting. So the clean setting means there's really no distortion being applied.
I am King Nahusha.
There's no distortion. It's practically clean. Now, let's remember from the volume shaper that we want to have a waveform, something that's close to square, that is going to modulate our volume. So if we click here, we can add an LFO. There are various types of modulation sources. We're going to start with an LFO. And this LFO will have a waveform. And I want something that looks more square than this. We can change it by here. I don't want it to be completely square because I want the transition not to be so clicky. And this will help the tool interpolate between one and the other. Now, the frequency in the other one was about 30 hertz. Let's set this one to 30 hertz as well. And now we have to somehow attach this to our volume. Now the way that it works in this plugin is that you can literally drag this cable from the modulation source. I'm going to attach it to our level control. They're attached now, and now we have this bar here, and this bar controls how much of the modulation is going to be applied to the level. Let's see what happens.
I am King Nahusha.
It's very aggressive. Now let's lower it quite a bit.
I am King Nahusha.
That's very little. So I think I played with it before and something maybe around 0.05.
I am King Nahusha.
There we go.
I am King Nahusha, your ancestor.
Right. This is not bad. This sounds pretty close to what we had before. So there you go. We can do it in more than one plugin. But Saturn has a lot more options than Volume Shaper. So what else can we do here? Well, one thing that would be nice, right now the modulation affects the volume at a constant rate no matter how loud the snake speaks.
I am King Nahusha, your ancestor.
But we could make this nicer if we had a way to change the amount of modulation as a function of the volume of the incoming signal. So luckily, we can do it in this plugin. If we go and we add something called an envelope follower, now we have another modulation source. And this modulation source will basically follow the shape of the incoming signal as it goes up and down. And it can affect something. So what can we affect with it? We can pull this modulation source and we can modulate the amount of modulation that we set before. So if we set this now to 0, we'll see what happens here.
I am King Nahusha.
Okay, this still sounds very aggressive. So I'm going to load in the preset as I already tweaked it before. Here we go. So we can see that the amount of modulation for the envelope follower had to be a certain amount. It was dialed in. And now if we play it,
I am King Nahusha, your ancestor.
that sounds very nice. Now, the place that we're going to hear the effect of the envelope follower is when the snake goes from soft to loud. This is where fine-tuning pays off at the end. Maybe people won't pay attention to it, but it's going to sound more organic.
Today I got lucky and found you my prey. I will devour you and satisfy my hunger.
And so there you go. We have two ways with two different plugins to achieve the same thing. And if you have another way of modulating volume in your editor, in other plugins, then now you know how to do something like that. The whole point is learn your plugins as deeply as you can so that you can make a connection between the sound that you hear in your head and what can actually be implemented on the track. Okay, I think this is probably a good place to stop for now. I went ahead and closed this saturation plugin. I added the reverb that I had on initially, a little bit of EQ, and enabled the S processing. Let's remind ourselves what the whole clip sounds like processed.
I am King Nahusha, your ancestor. Cursed by Rishi Agastya, I have become a snake. It's been a long time since I had anything to eat. Today I got lucky and found you my prey. I will devour you and satisfy my hunger.
In the next video, we'll focus on processing of the S sounds. Hope this was useful to you. Please feel free to leave comments down below. I'll do my best to answer any questions. Bye for now.